chaotic Chintan, our attempt at understanding the chaos around us. This is Vaidehi, and this is
Pankaj. Thanks, Vaidehi. That was a fun introduction. Okay, so what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. Hopefully that's not the only kind of intelligence around us.
I like it. Okay.
So, let's start with talking about what artificial intelligence is.
Yes. Okay. I think it's AI is all the buzz right now. So everyone is obviously curious about it. One of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this is that there is a lot of sort of misinformation going on around. I don't want to call it misinformation. It is not intentional that the information is incorrect. It is more that people sometimes talk about things that they don't necessarily understand at the level that they are talking about. So, for instance, when we say AI, this is happening a lot. So, what is the difference between AI and ML? And because you have done data science work already, you should be able to actually give us a better idea of what ML is, and then I can tell about what I have read about AI in the world. So
okay, later not put me on the spot. Thanks, Pankaj. All right. ML, which stands for machine learning. While the name suggests that a machine might learn something, there is actually no learning going on there. In very, very simple terms, machine learning algorithms are algorithms that can predict the outcome of a particular set of inputs, and they are created by training data on a particular set of data points. So let's say that, for example, you have a set of medical data. Let's say that certain risk factors we all know can cause cardiovascular diseases like high blood pressure, alcohol, and so on. While this is a commonly known fact, let's assume that this is unknown. The way to find that out would be to have some data about various people's genetic factors, and then know whether they currently have cardiovascular disease or not, expose that to a machine learning algorithm, and then it would understand which factors contribute to the disease and which do not, and accordingly, when a new person turns up and then they tell you their symptoms, the algorithm would predict whether they are at risk of the disease or not. So in a very, very simple example, this is what machine learning does, in the sense that it needs to be first trained on a specific set of data points, so that it knows which input leads to what outcome, and then it can predict accordingly. Artificial intelligence, on the other hand, is not as simple as just looking at a set of predictions based on a set inputs. The theoretical idea of artificial intelligence is that a machine which can think on its own and produce human-like answers. Now, how does that technically work today, or to what extent have we achieved artificial intelligence? I'll probably let you cover that off. So I think one of the most recent, well, not recent, actually something that has been in the news for a while is ChatGPT. Would you like to tell us what that is, Pankaj?
yes. So I'll probably simplify what you said a bit more, because I think it's important that we, although oversimplification is a problem, we have to understand from a simpler form, right? So if I simplify it, machine learning is a set of systems which helps in predicting or classifying a data set. And once it has learned how to classify or predict a trend or something, given a new input, it will, based on existing data and some biases and some other parameters, it will predict the next outcome based on how it has been trained. So I think that's at the base of it. AI, I feel, is a more a catch-all term for anything that is it's sort of machine learning and more complex machine learning, if I have to say, because the reason why ChatGPT is so popular is because it is able to work with natural language, and it is able to answer questions that humans may ask in a very human format. Now, a lot of that is because it is a large language model. Now, one of the things that we may want to understand is why large language models are different from any other ML models. Technically, I don't think they are really different. The architecture might be different, obviously, but large language models actually do the exact same things. They try to predict the next token. And token in this context is, so every word that we have, and this is, again, I have a lot of theories about how human mind works. So one of those things is we do not, I feel, we do not store information in vacuum. So when we think of something in our head, it's always with respect to something else. It's in relation to something else. We can't have an idea isolated in our head. And you can imagine the same thing happening in a model. Now, what happens is every text that we have, every word that we have in English or other languages as well, they get converted into tokens. And when you convert something into token and you create a vector space out of for each of those tokens. So that means every word or in every token, let's simplify it. Let's talk about words. Let's not worry about tokens. Tokens is just how we split words for processing. But every word that we have in our language has a vector representation in the model. That would mean that just like how I cannot imagine Vaidehi without having some other things related to her, these words also have related words. Now, an easier example, and there are lots of other videos which talk about this as well, which might be easier to visualize if you see a video. A burger and a carrot, they are closer in this vector space, whereas a carrot and
An
elephant are far away in that vector space, because there are lots of things that although again, it is far away from the carrot, but a spaceship is farther away from the carrot than the elephant is to the carrot. Because the carrot and burger, they are both edible. I'm just giving an example. This is not necessarily how it stores this information. I'm oversimplifying it. I'm talking about it in a couple of dimensions, but there are multiple dimensions. So if you think of this as 3-dimension space, the vector space, at least the OpenAI vector space, is 1,536 dimensions. So that's a lot of dimensions. So in this sense, when we talk about a burger and carrot, they are probably closer to each other. They are both edible things. They are both coming out of, they have a lot of organic components to it. Now,
whereas an elephant is not edible.
I mean, debatable. Depends on who you ask, I guess. But yes, an elephant is not something that humans usually eat. And also it is a living thing that can walk, and it is part of an animal kingdom, right? So there are those other things. However, a spaceship is completely different. It's not even in this area. So that's how this is represented.
So to put it in layman terms, and we'll take a very, very simple scenario where instead of 1,500 different dimensions, you just have 3. So we just imagine a simple cube, and there are various points in space within the cube, and each point correlates to a token. So all closely related subjects the tokens would be in the same physical location, whereas less related subjects would be further away.
Correct.
And based on the proximity of tokens, an LLM then decides whether the text is related or not, and accordingly predicts the following text.
So the text and the vector space and all that, and the proximity search is more actually for searching for related subjects and having. So if you have used ChatGPT already, you would see a temperature there. So when you select temperature, when you select a lower temperature, you are increasing the randomness of the output. So that means it will freely select a lot of related tokens. Whereas if you restrict the temperature and keep the temperature high, it will not freely select a token. It will be specifically selecting a very specific set of token following its training model. So depending on how it is trained, it will select a very specific type of token. So yes, but the biggest thing that the models LLMs have brought is the generative aspect of it, where it creates new content based on existing text. So it predicts the next word, but it predicts it so well that it almost looks like it is thinking. It almost feels like reasoning is an emergent property of a large language model. It almost feels like that. I'm saying almost because I'm not convinced that it is consistent in its reasoning capability as of now. So until that happens, I think we cannot say that it is a completely emergent property. But for now, I think we can say it is almost there.
Until we're completely convinced about how reasoning occurs in natural intelligence, I think how reasoning occurs in artificial intelligence.
No, I think yes.
Is it differently?
No, but we don't have to understand how reasoning occurs in, like, I'm not worried about the mechanism of reasoning, because it's unnecessary burden on us to. There is no reason to have a machine to think exactly the way we think. As long as its outcomes are aligned to how we are thinking, I think the way it does that is kind of irrelevant, because that's kind of the point of artificial intelligence, because let it come up with its own mechanism, I guess. Sorry, we are talking about ChatGPT, right? Yes. So this is 3.5, and then if you are a paying member, you are getting GPT-4, which is a lot better compared to GPT 3.5. There are rumors of GPT-5 being in works and coming out soon. I don't know. There are lots of interesting things happening in that space.
Interesting.
Last week, GPT Store was released.
Yes, that's right.
What it allows you to do, if you are a paying subscriber, if you already have a subscription, you can create your own GPT and share that with the world. And the more people use it, you will get, it will be monetized and you will get paid. We don't know the mechanism. We don't know the structure of this payment and what's the calculation going to look like. And probably they'll never release it. I mean, YouTube, I don't think tells how much. I don't know. We have not monetized anything.
We haven't yet started, but
That's true. That's true. So that has happened. Anything you want to talk about in the GPT space?
I think that pretty much covers it off on a high level. We touched upon what large language models are, how they function, and then what plans OpenAI has for their own GPT. But there are so many other large language models out there since ChatGPT first came out 2021, was it? March 2021?
No. So GPT 3.5 was released in end of November 2022. Yeah. Okay. So that was 3.5 though. GPT 3 was released a year before that, I think. 21-ish.
Sometime in 21.
Yeah.
Right. So that belongs to OpenAI, which was subsequently, of course, acquired by Microsoft because...
Well, it's not acquired by Microsoft. Yeah. So they are working closely. It's actually a bit, the organization structure is actually a bit complicated. So OpenAI, there is a non-profit organization on the top. They cannot interfere, they do not interfere with the functioning of the OpenAI, which is another profit-making entity under the non-profit. And Microsoft has a big stake in this profit-making entity. So although Microsoft says that they do not control OpenAI, they have a big share, and it's unofficial, but everyone knows that Microsoft has a big say in what happens in OpenAI. So I think it's okay to say that Microsoft controls OpenAI to a large extent. Yes.
Well, what's interesting is that once Microsoft and OpenAI started participating in this, a lot of other people started coming up with their own LLMs.
Yeah.
But in the big IT companies, we have Google, who came out with Bard, their own LLM in the initial days, and then now they've come out with a newer invention which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, Apple has been very, very quiet on this subject.
Yes, and this is another thing with this is probably just how Apple is, right? If you think about it, Apple usually does things slow. It does not take pressure from other people. That's actually very, I don't know if it's a good thing, but it's a thing about Apple that they are not pressured into doing something. They will do it whenever they do it, and even if they have started, and my understanding is they have already started working on an LLM, or they already released some version of it. So I guess Apple has a reputation to maintain. So even if they release a product, it has to be well polished. So I think that's what is going on with Apple. But I don't know. Maybe the next iPhone might have something built into it. I think my prediction will be Apple will have a LLM running in their phone. That will be their goal, because if that happens, that's actually really good. Because Google is doing that. Google has last month, I think, they came up with a video of, which is another topic in itself. They came up with their Google Gemini. They released Google Gemini. Fun fact: Google Gemini, Gemini is to a twin.
The twins, yeah.
Yeah.
The constellation.
The constellation, right? Now, I think it is called the Gemini. I saw this in Marcus's podcast. It's called Google Gemini, I think, because it is a merger of two existing Google products, DeepMind and Palm.
And
So they combined those two and they call this Gemini, which makes sense, which is a good name. So Google Gemini has three models that they have three products that they are releasing: the Nano, and then there is Pro, and then there is Ultra. The video was about Ultra, I think. Yeah.
so before we get into all of that, what is Google Gemini? So it's not just another LLM. There is something more about it.
Yeah.
What they call a multimodal.
Yes. So Google Gemini is a multimodal.
Yeah.
I'm not, because these are closed source, it's difficult to say how multimodal things are.
Yeah.
Because a true multimodal model will be something which takes any input or multiple modal input and can output in multiple modes. So meaning, if I stream a video, it should be able to process the video and give a text or write a song about it or whatever, right? The Google Ultra demo, I'm not sure if they actually streamed the video or if it was screenshots of what was happening and they asked the model to respond, and all its responses were words. So, no, not all were words. There were some
sentences and paragraphs.
and then it also had images. It created new images out of, yes. So it is multimodal in that sense, yes.
And the interesting thing in that demo was that the person conducting it began to draw an image
Yes.
and kept asking it what it looked like.
Yes.
And then it came up with explanations, and as he continued to modify the image
Yes.
into different objects,
Yeah.
it continued to come up with an appropriate
So-
explanation. So
I'm not sure if you're following the news, because that has been marked as fake. So
has that been marked as fake?
yeah, so when I say fake, it's kind of like, when I say fake, it's not fake that it's
It's a curated.
yes, sort
Video.
of. So what happened was the video is edited,
Yeah.
and it almost gives a feeling that the model is responding live. It is not. And we don't know how edited it is. So apparently the prompt was long, and what we hear them say is just one sentence. And they did that so that the video is not too long, but then we don't know how long the prompts were and how edited the whole thing is. So I don't know. I don't think it is accurate in that sense. But yes, I'm pretty sure it is capable of looking at, if not the video, looking at the images and have that context and say that, okay, you initially had a squiggly line, now you have a duck. So that's pretty cool actually. I was actually impressed, but we'll have to wait for the Ultra to be released. I don't think Ultra is available for consumption. Pro is already available as part of Bard. So if you go into Bard and type, the response is from Pro. Nano is available in Google Pixel Pro 8. So if you have Google Pixel Pro 8, you have access to Google Nano, which is really good. Yes.
Right. Now, we spoke a lot about LLMs, and because most of those companies make phones, we also spoke about running them on phones.
Yes.
That we should probably touch upon how much resources these LLMs consume.
Yes.
Yes. Is it such a simple thing to make an LLM available to everyone on their phone and people asking it questions all the time?
So this is actually a very complex topic in itself,
Yes.
right? Okay, so I see a lot of people saying that ChatGPT was downloaded, or can I download ChatGPT on my phone? One, ChatGPT is a web application. So that means you go to a website and you interact to ChatGPT through that website. So there is no downloading required, at least for ChatGPT, and you don't have to run anything on your system. That means someone else is running it somewhere. You are asking questions, and that question is sent to some service, some API, and the API comes back with an answer. So that's the ChatGPT model. Now, I believe it is, I think ChatGPT is close to, it is a mixture of experts model. So that means it has multiple large models working together. When you ask a question, depending on your question, it will point to the right model and you'll get a response or something like that. So that means it is a really large model. It's not like one model which does things. There are multiple large models.
So
you're
there's
doing
some
this
initial classification that occurs, and then it gets redirected to the appropriate
model. Yes.
model.
Yeah. Now, and it consumes a lot of energy to run these models. But this is specifically for OpenAI's ChatGPT. So GPT-4, GPT 3.5, or GPT 4.5. So all that, they are really huge. They consume a lot of energy. But although there are other models which are not as sophisticated or not as large, but they do a pretty decent job of generating text. So Facebook released Llama, then they released Llama 2, and there are hundreds of other people who have built on top of these models. So Llama itself has some licensing restriction, but I think for most use cases, you can use Llama. But there are other companies which are creating models either on top of Llama, or they have their own model that they bring. One that comes to my mind is Mistral. Mistral 7 billion parameter model is actually really good, and you can run that on your desktop. So you can use one of your desktops and run it, although it is slow if you just have a CPU. But if you have a GPU, you can run it on your local machine, and you don't have to send any data to it. Having said that, you probably find it very difficult to run that on your phone.
Yes.
And you probably will have to go even smaller and than the 7 billion parameters. So if you go, let's say 3 billion parameters, I'm not sure if it will be that useful at that point, or if it will have that level of generative capabilities. It may actually work if you only want to use that for very specific use cases. So for instance, typing text prediction, because there are only so much things that we type. We don't talk about like a lot of things when we are not going to talk about Harry Potter, for instance, right? When we type, it is most likely going to be about two people talking to whatever they talk about. So to that level, I think it is possible to run some model on your phone, but I don't think it's possible to get large models on your phone. Although there is a lot of very interesting research going on. Not just research, a lot of implementation has happened. We have. There are lots of things. There are PEFs.
Yeah.
There are lots of things that's happening. We can cover that at some other point. Yeah. The other thing that yes, Rabbit.
Yes,
So did you see the video?
I did see the video.
What do you think about it?
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable using a device like that. So firstly, what is Rabbit?
Yes.
It is a small mobile phone sized device
Yes.
to which you can speak, and the manufacturers claim that it will perform whatever action. For example, if you ask it a query, it will answer you, or if you ask it to make an appointment, it will do that.
Yes.
Things like that. Whatever can be done online, it will do all of those things. And there is no other kind of interface, or if there is any, there is a very minimal interface.
Yeah.
Most of the time you just speak to it and it processes the data using what they are calling an LLM, or a large action model.
Yes. Yes.
Where the purpose of an LLM is to perform various types of
Actions. Okay. My thoughts on this, I think it's just stupid. I know I'm being very blunt, but it just does not make sense. Okay. Multiple problems with this.
Yes.
One, the large model that they're talking about, you cannot run that on your handheld device.
No.
It just does not make sense. So if for people who have not seen, we'll probably share the link to it. So Rabbit R1 is a device that is priced at $200, and the first lot has been sold out. I think second lot has also been sold out. That's about 10,000 devices that has been pre-booked. So when I say sold out, it has been pre-booked. The devices has not been given to people. Now, $200, and you cannot. I don't think, unless there is some kind of magical technology that has come up in the last few weeks, we don't have anything to run a large model on a handheld device that is run on battery, right? Okay, so that's one thing. So that means they must be running the servers somewhere, and it is more of an API call, if at all it is legitimate. So that means you do an API call to a server, and then they are sending the devices to you for $200, which might have taken them $100 to make, $150 to make. So they have this, let's say, $50 profit. How are they paying for the servers that are running?
Yeah.
And it does not make sense. You cannot have, the only way you can have some model like that working. So when I say model, business model to work, is that you sell this device to everyone again and again. So that means it's like a mobile phone. You sell one this year, and after 2 years, sell them again. And even then, a $50 profit, split that across 24 months. I am not convinced that this is legitimate.
And why we're talking about selling the devices again and again is because they've just announced a device. They haven't announced any subscription that goes with it.
Yeah.
So it is unclear at this stage if they will offer software upgrades.
Yes.
And therefore, whatever API calls the device can make at the outset will be what it can continue to make forever unless any upgrades are offered.
Yeah.
And therefore, the model is not going to be enhanced. Now, what is the model itself? A large
Action model. Yes.
We have large language models used in quite extensively everywhere, but
Yes.
this is the first I'm hearing of a large action model. Seems like
Yes.
a term coined by the makers.
Yes, and also I have not seen. I probably have to do some research on this. I have not seen a paper on this. I have not seen any technical papers around this. So, and it makes it very difficult to believe if there is. Okay, for instance, when we talk about large language models, we know how they came to be, right? It's not like something that like you never know. Like it might be a person sitting behind it and actually answering all the questions. But that's not the case, and we know that's not the case because Google had the paper published about transformers, and then people started working on it. GPT released GPT-3, they released GPT-2. Then they released GPT 3.5. So we know these things have evolved. We have seen them evolving. What is a large action model? Is it just large language model which is talking to APIs? What they call as interfaces, they're not calling it APIs. So what they're saying is it interacts with the interface. Now in Android, within an Android, you do have something called as interfaces. Like you have APIs, right? So instead of a REST API, it is more of an application API where you call a Java program or a Kotlin program. Now, when that's for Android. When you go into iOS, it's a completely different thing. Yes. It does not use the same template. It's not the same thing. Then you go to Linux. It might be similar. No, it's not at all similar to Android. That is a completely different set of things that you work with. Then you come to Windows, and that has a completely different set of APIs. Yes. You probably have to work with .NET, and it just does not. It's too good to be true. Like honestly, I am calling this a scam. It's just not. I'm not convinced that this is possible, or it's possible for $200. So that's my take on this. It's just anyway. We'll see. I mean, I might be wrong. Like I have been wrong before. Yes.
And we have a real user review.
Yes.
We will know what it actually does.
Yes.
But it just random memory. If you remember a demo that Google did with a Google Assistant, I think a year or two ago, where you speak to it. Yeah. The person doing the demo just spoke to it and said, "Make me an appointment online."
Yes.
And it did.
Yes. That's different, and we know how that works.
Yes.
Yeah.
The point being that we know how the software works.
Yeah.
We know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And that there are many softwares out there which already perform certain actions.
Yes.
The uniqueness being pitched by the makers of this one is that it can apparently do every possible action online.
Correct. Yes.
So yeah, let's see.
Yes. It's a bit. I'm not. It's either it's a RPA, it's a robotic process automation tool. If that is the case, then why the big fuss? Because we have had RPAs for a very long time. So like you have it on your phone. So what's the big deal? Like, and if that is the case, you still need subscription. I don't think you can run that without a subscription.
Yes.
So yeah. Cool. So that's Rabbit. Do you want to get into predictions?
Why not? All right. And we briefly touched upon resources that it takes to run LLMs.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is one aspect of predictions that I would like to make, how we see this growing. And we actually watched a very interesting TED talk, was it yesterday or day before, where somebody was talking about the environmental footprint.
Yeah.
That these large LLMs are going to make, because as much as we like to say it's all in the cloud, there are actually very real physical hardware where all of this is running that has its own carbon footprint, and these are very, very computationally heavy models.
Yes. Some of these are very heavy, some of these are not, but yeah.
Well, the ones that can do nearly everything are quite computationally heavy.
They are very heavy, yes.
That is one aspect, but then there is the other aspect of predictions, something that hits much, much closer to home for us, which is what does this do to the IT industry?
Oh, yes.
Are you afraid for your job, Pankaj? Do you think an AI will replace you tomorrow?
AI can replace me today, like, but I am worried. So we are in Australia, right?
Yes. Point of clarification.
Yes, and I have worked in IT for most of my life.
Showing your age there, Pankaj.
Yes, and I'm getting old, but so okay, was in IT for a very long time. Still I'm in IT.
I saw how you stopped short of a number and said most of my life.
Yes.
Anyway.
But, and I was in India for most of that part. I have been here for the last 6 years, but I mean these numbers are not that important. What I'm trying to get to is my job. Yes, AI can replace it. It will take a couple of years to get there where I get affected. and let's hope I find something more interesting to do by that time. But what I'm more worried about is the impact specifically to countries like India and to some extent Philippines and Vietnam, where the services industry is like a big deal, right? So in India, services industry is actually one of the reasons why we had so much growth in the last few decades after liberalization in the 90s and 2000s.
Yep.
A lot of Indian companies actually showed tremendous growth because we were providing services from India to Western world, so Australia, US, Europe, everywhere. A lot of these services, I'm afraid, will be automated. So when I say automated, it's not that the things will happen automatically. It's more that the low skilled part of that, those decisions will be taken away from humans. So for instance, if you're just going to follow SOP, a standard operating procedure, do we need a person to do it? Like, are we going to have that just for the sake of having accountability that a person does it? I am worried that we won't. Okay, so my prediction for this year, job market will slow down in India for sure. At least in IT, hiring will slow down tremendously. Like, you will not have the same level of growth that you have had in the past. It will slow down a lot. It will slow down in other countries sometime next year, but I feel India will be one of the most impacted countries. The reason is, like, a lot of things that roles like business analyst, project managers do can be consolidated. You don't need, in the new world, end of this year, early next year, instead of having 5 BAs in a project which needs 5 BAs, you can probably now work with 2 BAs. So it's not that the role BA is going to go away. I'm not hinting that. I'm not saying that the role are going to vanish. But it will be augmented by AI. Most of the roles, most of the things that we do will be supported by AI. We will be using these tools to do those things. And I'm worried that we are not doing enough to work out what we want to do if we don't have these jobs. If there is no demand, what will all these engineers do? Like, what's going to happen? Like, are there other jobs? So, yeah.
There will be some others for sure. So with the advent of any new technology, there will be certain roles that come up.
Yeah.
But I guess the main concern is that there won't be enough.
Yes.
As compared to the number of people whose roles
Yes.
can easily be fulfilled by AI.
So yes, I forgot what was the name of the movement. But I know I have read about when cars were becoming popular, people were worried about the horse and the carriages and those jobs, and what will happen to the horses and what will happen to the people who own these horses. But it's not the same thing.
It's not.
It's so the world population at that time probably was close to 2 or 3 billion people, right? Now we are 8 to 9 billion people, and we have a lot more people who will be jobless. It's. I mean, I'm generally not a doomsday person.
Are you?
Well, maybe I am, but this scenario is a bit scary. And new jobs will come. Like, obviously you will have new jobs, but not enough. Definitely not enough. And you will have millions of people. We already have millions of people without jobs, but it will increase a lot. So let's see how we tackle that. Let's see how we handle that. We'll have to work out something. My prediction for the long term is that we will probably, this will be a good segue to the next topic as well. My prediction for the long term is that all these people who are well trained, who are well educated, and not able to do a software job or something related in IT will move towards other areas. So things where there is physical work required. However, what we have seen, if you have smart people working in an area, you will see that getting automated quickly. So I'm pretty sure that these people will build smart solutions around that, and that will become, for instance, you will have robotics coming into picture. So that might augment the physical labor, making those jobs redundant at some point. But
so using the Internet of Things to integrate your tasks and make them easily controllable from one device.
Correct. That also you can have robots which can move things in a warehouse. We already have, Amazon has a really good set of
That's right.
warehouse robots, and China has lots of robots. They sell that a lot. But the only good thing about those things is that the market penetration takes a lot of time. Like it's easier to it's easier for softwares to reach all the devices than a robot to reach all the shops. So that, because it's a physical thing that needs to be sent out, and it takes time to manufacture these things, that will take longer to be implemented, and it may never get implemented 100%. There will always be some space where you will have some gaps, but it will affect our jobs for sure.
So this isn't a scenario of one technology replacing another. It's more equivalent to what happened in maybe the mid 1900s when the manufacturing sector all got automated. So prior to that, you used to have an assembly line, a bunch of workers doing specific tasks. And now you have machines that literally do the same thing. So instead of 10 workers, they now have one.
Just to supervise it.
Something similar in the IT sector as well.
It might lead to abundance, which is what Bill Gates and Sam Altman are predicting, that we have lived with the mindset of scarcity and now we will get into the abundance mode. I hope we do. However, we have to understand the impact to society. We have never been an abundant society. We have never been a society which does not worry about anything. We have always worried about who has the most money, who has the most food, who has the most water. So it's uncharted territory. So it's just that it's a bit scary. We started this in a very positive note. I think we're going downhill from there. But yes. So that's happening.
Right. And this needn't be the doomsday prediction that it is sounding to be. The point is that as we continue to automate more and more sectors of our lives and all our basic necessities come to be met, then it is just a matter of understanding as a universal society whether what is the new way that you would like to lead your life, how would you like to keep yourself occupied. If there is no need to physically produce things, if there's no need to physically perform services, and you already have machines doing that for you, and you have your daily life running, you have your food, bed and shelter, then beyond that we will have to find new ways to amuse ourselves.
Yes, we have problems to solve. We definitely have a lot of problems to solve. We have pollution, we have energy,
climate change,
we have space exploration, we have ocean exploration. There are lots of things that we can do.
And as we talk about all this today, we have to be conscious that there are still people in many countries in the world who are suffering from poverty, hunger. The very, very basic things are still not uniformly available all over the world. So it's not like humanity as a whole will have nothing to do. It's more a matter of how society reorganizes itself and
where we focus. I mean, Bill Gates focused on malaria. We all can do that now.
He went from computers to malaria. Why can't we?
We probably will have more interesting things to do. Okay.
Thank you, Bill Gates, for solving the smaller problems for us.
Actually, yes. It's actually a big deal what he has done. But okay.
Right. So that's one impact. And we covered it off on a very, very high level. What will happen to jobs and what are the new fields that will come up. But where is that going to leave our economy? If people do not need to be employed to obtain certain services, then where will the income come from? And that's where UBI becomes a very, very interesting concept.
We will probably point somewhere, because half of what we have talked about are opinions. And I mean, We are not experts in economy. So a lot of things that we talk about is what we have learned from other people. So
Yes.
take it with a grain of salt, a large grain of salt. But UBI, yes, I think that's probably a more reasonable approach to where we will end up. UBI, for people who don't know, is universal basic income. So some form of universal basic income. I know it sounds very socialist, but in a world where most people don't have jobs, you need some form of socially available distribution. Either you distribute food to everyone directly,
Yes.
or you distribute money to everyone directly and let them buy what food they want to buy, which makes more sense rather than giving food to everyone directly. So UBI seems to make sense to me. I don't know the impact of UBI to a big society. We have not seen that anywhere. No one has implemented UBI, so we don't know what will happen to. Like, for instance, if you give money to everyone, the value of money itself goes down. That's kind of
Yes.
the obvious outcome. And you can't just give money to people and then collect tax on top of that. How does that work? You're inflating its value and taking some part of it, and you cannot use that to do anything because that doesn't have any value anymore.
If we bring about UBI and if we reach a point where we have nothing to do, our way of valuing money will probably have to change as well. Because in the current model, as you said, it can potentially lead to hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Either money will become meaningless,
Yeah.
or anything beyond your basic necessities will become too expensive to obtain.
Yes.
Probably something to cover in a lot of detail.
Yes, we have to think this one through and
Yes.
see run some scenarios and
Yes.
and see what might happen. Yes.
Yes.
This is an interesting topic.
Some food for thought.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Any other impacts or predictions that you would like to make?
I mean, it's not like we are going to be held accountable for this. So what the hell, right? So no,
If
I think
only there was accountability on social
I
media.
know there is no accountability, which is good in a way if you think about it. No, I think that's about it. My prediction for this year is that we will have a lot of multimodal models coming out.
Yes.
Google has already released or talked about it last year. OpenAI is already has vision in part of their GPT, so we might have audio and all those things integrated into a single model. Open source model will try to catch up. I don't believe, well, my view is that open source will always play catch up. It will never beat a closed model. The reason why we have all this open source. My understanding is Llama was leaked, the Facebook's model.
Yes.
It was not released.
Before
it was leaked.
officially released.
Yes. So Llama 2 was released officially, and they are talking about Llama 3 now. But Facebook is doing this because they don't have a product to sell. Llama is more of a sort of a platform. It's sort of an infrastructure on top of which you can build applications. But in itself, they don't have any way of monetizing on Llama, like within Facebook's ecosystem. Whereas OpenAI has some monetization plans. And that's because the model is really good. So open source will always try to play catch up, specifically because one, people like me and Vaidehi and others, developers, do not have hundreds and thousands of dollars to create our own models. Like, we can't just burn cash to create large language models. And it takes a lot of money to create a new model out of scratch. What is happening in the open source world right now is there are lots of companies who either create these models or take an existing model and train that on specific data set or tweak it or fine tune it, and then they release it back into open source community. So that is what's happening at the moment. But I don't think it will go for very long because of the amount of money required to burn to create these models and maintain these models. I think at some point open source will start lagging and closed source will make more money and they will advance faster. So let's see, because Microsoft is already releasing Copilot, and all the enterprises will have
Yes.
Copilot. So that means a lot of money is going to flow into OpenAI and Microsoft. And
Yes.
with that much cash revenue, I'm pretty sure they will be able to advance their technology faster, and they can hire a lot more people to work on it. So open source, although I want open source to get better and do a lot more, I think it will not beat these closed source models. However, I mean, if open source models work for you, for your use case, please go ahead and do that. But don't assume that it will have AGI at some point, right?
Yeah,
So
I think the simple point is that these models are very, very large.
yeah,
So for the sake of simple understanding, a machine learning model that predicts based on numerical data will have anything as less as 10 or even less parameters,
Yeah.
whereas these models have billions.
yes,
So
Yes.
just look at the sheer difference,
Yeah.
and accordingly there will be resources required, computational resources
Yes.
required, the manpower required to build something so complex from
Yeah.
ground up, and the fact that it has to be all PII.
non-PII.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll have to build your own code
Yes,
to make it
Yeah.
closed source. So
yeah,
all these things make it very, very challenging for small group of people or one or two individuals to do this. Having
Yes.
said that, OpenAI did start with only 40 people, but the point is they had
No, but they had cash. So
they had money,
yeah,
and they did not have the pressures or the restrictions that a large corporation might
currently
have.
have. Yes, that's true.
The bureaucracy,
Yes,
the legal obligations, and so on.
yeah, that's true. Yes.
So, anything else you would like to say before we close?
All good. I think we have covered most of the things that we wanted to talk about. So
So, here we go. Our first attempt at understanding the chaos around us.
thanks,
And
Vaidehi.
hopefully we will be back for many more.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Like and
Thank
subscribe
you
the
all.
video.